impressions was that this man is so still vitally interested in everything that's happening around him. He still has that wonderful sparkle and curiosity that he's always had about everything. We had talked about a number of issues, the environment. As you know, he's quite an avid sailor and has co-authored a book about the waters around North Carolina. We talked about North Carolina's history, which he knows a lot about, of course, and his trip to Normandy with President Eisenhower.
Well, why don't we tap into that conversation right now with Walter Cronkite?
You are participating in the flotilla tomorrow. You have sailed these waters around here. What is the significance of all of this to you, Walter Cronkite?
Well, besides the honor of being invited, it's a great opportunity to get back to North Carolina, but I've always had a great interest in the history of our country. History is really my field. It's the history of, it's the field of every journalist. We're writing living history. The past history also, I think, is so important to us. And this is where it all began. This is where the new colonies began, where the West was really opened for the old world. I think it also has significance to a sailor. I think the most remarkable thing about the colony of Roanoke, Walter Raleigh's expeditionary force, was that it landed here getting through Hatteras. That's, of course, as we all know, one of the most difficult spots on the entire coast of the United States.
You've sailed through there or close to that.
Yeah, I have indeed. And as we all know, this is where the great storms of the Atlantic breed, right off here. The waters are shoal and they're difficult. I think, in fact, they made it ashore at all. It was the first great feat.
Have you seen the Elizabeth II and wondered how they sailed a ship like that?
When you look at those old timers like that with an 8-foot draft and all that freeboard, you wonder how they ever crossed the Atlantic, let alone got through an area like this. The size of the vessels, the number of people they carried, of course, is indicative of the hardships that people went through to explore and to colonize in those days. I suppose, not knowing anything better, they thought that that was pretty good, what they had. We may look back someday at this on the 747 and say, my gosh, can you imagine putting 300 people in that?
Yes. And what is America doing to its waterways? You've sailed the coast of the Southeast. What are your impressions of what we're doing?
Well, of course, the main thing we're doing is polluting them, and this is the great danger to not only to those who would like to use our waters for recreational purposes and those who get a living from our waters and our food stuffs, but it's a great danger to life on the planet itself. We face some imminent dangers to our civilization, and pollution is one of the important ones. Those who have crossed the ocean by sailing vessels say that they're never out of sight of human debris out there. And that's an incredible story. Cross the Atlantic Ocean and never get away from the plastic bottles and the beer cans and the oil slicks. It shows what we're doing.
Are we doing any better?
Our entire life, the whole food chain begins in the ocean, just as life probably began there. And to think that we're destroying that great resource is frightening. Yes, we're doing better, but very, very slowly. And the question is whether the point of no return is going to come upon us before we get something substantial done.
We shot the satellite this morning and sent the program back to England live. What has satellite done to news gathering?
Well, of course, it's been the greatest advance since radio telephony, I suppose. It's brought the world a great deal closer. That cliche is so overused, but at the same time, the reason we have cliches is they're honest, they're true, they live. And that is true. The fact that we can bring live coverage across the oceans, across the continents, around the world, must inevitably create, I should think, a better understanding. Sometimes intimacy with other peoples does not create understanding in the beginning, but it's got to over the long haul.
We recently saw the replay of the program you did with President Eisenhower in Normandy. And I don't know whether you saw the replay or not, but what do you remember about that trip and about that program?
Well, it was one of the great experiences, of course, that any journalist could have, was to have the supreme commander of such a great effort as was the Allied invasion of Normandy, or liberation of Normandy, to be able to be the object of a personally conducted tour. And one of the remarkable things was that it was the first time General Eisenhower had a chance to really visit those places in the fashion that we did, that is, free of the crowds and ceremonies surrounding the visit. When he was there during the war, of course, it was not possible to get to all the places he wanted to get to, and the circumstances were vastly different. And after that, the couple of visits he had made always were surrounded by panoply. The French president had to be present, and the bands were there, and the crowds were around, and you don't see anything that way. It's the tragedy of any presidential visit anywhere. They don't get to see anything except crowds and fast-moving motorcades. That would have been his experience. Now he had a chance to stand on the ground, stand at Point de Hoc, and there where the Rangers had climbed that cliff and the incredible in the front of German soldiers shooting at them like fish in a barrel. He stood there and with me looked at it for the first time really in that light and said, I don't know how they did it. One of the most amusing incidents of the whole thing was that we had kept the visit very quiet, and there was no the minimum security, and with that minimum security, no one ashore knew that the president's party was there, really. So we were operating without any public attention, and we were on the beach, driving in a Jeep along the beach, on camera, with the camera, the long lens, some distance away on a hill, shooting us as we talked. And we stopped, and we were talking, and as we did, a nun with a whole group of young ladies, maybe 8, 9 years old, or something like that, all in their little school dresses, came down the beach, and they came walking right by the Jeep. And the nun clearly was telling the children about the landing in Normandy, but she didn't recognize General Eisenhower. And she said, good morning, bonjour, and he said, bonjour, sister, and she said, bonjour, and walked right on past, right through the camera, and never knew who she was saying good morning to. I thought it was quite ironic.
Charlie, were there any other impressions you might have of Walter Cronkite or his family?
I found myself not wanting to stop talking with him. I was going to do about 5 minutes with him because he was late, but I found myself wanting to continue to talk with him. But I met his wife, and she was a delightful person, and I asked her, assuming that he didn't travel as much as he used to, I said, isn't it better to have Walter close to home these days? And she said, well, he travels just as much as he always did, but she did say that he does so many things now that he likes to do rather than be on assignment all the time. A lot of these things he enjoys, and she goes with him now.
Well, we certainly thank you for sharing your conversation with us. And stay with us, because coming up next, you're going to meet Jeff Tackett, and he has a very special story to tell. That's next on Carolina Saturday.